This episode, Michael and I sit down with Ben Broughton and we talk about how we can improve the home building process for the client, the builder, and the designer. Ben describes the design assist approach for a more collaborative pre-construction process between the three parties, and why spending more time in pre-construction can lead to increased time savings during the build. Finally, Ben tells us about his shop class initiative and about the moral formation you develop through manual labor. We hope you like this episode. If you do, give the podcast 5 stars. Thanks for listening. Upgrade your construction layouts with Trademarks. These heavy-duty vinyl markers are designed to withstand harsh job site conditions. They're durable, waterproof, and perfect for marking locations for electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and more. Available in trade-specific colors, Trademarks make communication with your team simple, professional, and reliable. Whether you're recording benchmarks, elevations, or center lines, Trademarks ensure your layouts stay intact, even under heavy traffic. New customers enjoy 15% off at checkout. Visit trademarklayout.com to get yours today. There was one thing I wanted to clarify. So we had Luke Gaffney on last week. And just a little side note, so we get to know Michael a little bit more. But he had mentioned that you would like to wear this climbing belt whenever you work, which is really disturbing, borderline retarded behavior
on the job site. Yeah. It's a man purse.
No. It's a tool belt.
It's not. Instead of wearing a tool belt like a normal person, Michael likes to go around with climbing bags.
I think tool belts could be better made.
Okay.
It has a drawstring on the top of it.
Yeah.
Like a purse.
You're climbing up ladders. A regular tool belt, all this crap falls out.
Do you climb?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you went out purposefully and purchased a climbing belt to store your tools.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
Actually, the belt itself is from a tool belt that I used first, and then the tool belt itself just wore apart because it's really poorly made. It's probably due to the fact that I bought it.
It's really questionable
at Lowe's.
behavior.
Is it a chalk bag? Is that what it is?
$10.
Bag. I didn't realize that until now.
It's not. It's not. It's like one of their. They have like chalk bags specific, and then this is just like utility pouch.
The brand that's written on it is Mysterious, but it's MISS. Mysterious.
Yeah.
Wow. Really questionable.
I will say, though, every time I've walked around a job site with him and I've been like, man, I need a pin, I need a tape measure, he has it in there. So it's actually very useful. I'm just glad I don't have to be the one to wear it.
Yeah. Well, okay. I told you cargo pants really.
In 20 years, when everyone's using those, you'll think,
you should come out with like your
Michael
own
started
line
doing
of, construction pouches and
shout out to Petzel or Pretzel. What was the rest of the brand?
Anyway, I'm gonna get off this.
This is a little rich coming from the guy who
I guess that's ironic.
Is in multiple videos for our company and cut off blue jean shorts.
That's true.
I'm really proud of that, actually.
Lonnie boy.
Everybody remembers it, so say what you want, but Ben, thanks for coming on and sitting down with us.
I'm really excited about this episode.
Me too. I'm interested to dive into this big brain of yours and just see what's knocking around in there. But no, so what I really wanted to touch on today, and it's kind of a broad topic, but I wanted to get you some of your thoughts on how do we make home building a better experience for not just the builder but for the client. So I know that's kind of broad. So I wanted to try to narrow it down a little bit more and just get your opinion on, what are some, in your experience, what are some sticking points that clients have like throughout the construction process?
Yeah. So I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah. Well, give me your thoughts.
Hey, this is long form.
Yeah.
But you said for the client specifically, not for other stakeholders. Or can I go into all of it?
Go, yeah, whatever you want.
Okay.
I said focus on the client first.
That's fair.
We should start.
Okay.
Let's start
there, and then we can circle back and get.
And then we can hit some of the other spots.
If it's midnight by the time we get done with the client.
Right.
So I think the best way to answer this for me is going to be to share all of the considerations that we have to take into account, because it's probably not the answer is not going to make a ton of sense unless we do that. In our world, and I'll speak more specifically to our world than to any other because that's the one I'm most intimately familiar with, but clients, they're building something that is their dream. Oftentimes for us, where we build, the kind of the price point and the types of homes that we build, this is the largest expenditure of the client's life. It's something that they've worked hard for and they've looked forward to their entire life. And so there's a lot of emotional investment in it. They also, we hear a lot that time is critical.
Yeah.
Some of our clients are older. They have plenty of money, but time is the one thing you can't get more of. And so they want to go fast. And the challenge with going fast is a lot of clients think that the sooner we break ground, the sooner they're done. And I don't think that's actually the truth. Yeah. I think it could be the truth, but I think there's value in spending more time in pre-construction and then breaking ground.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, if a client is going to experience stress during a build, it's going to be because costs are going up or the schedule's lengthening. And the sooner that you break ground in the process, the more likely it is that you're going to experience one or both of those things because plans are not fully developed.
Right.
So it's counterintuitive, but I've heard this saying before, slow down to speed up.
Right.
I think the best thing that we can do for clients is get the idea into the world and into architects. And honestly, it's hard for architects because they're the ones, the client comes to them and they want the architect to be creative, but also to hurry up and get us going. And it's got to be hard for an architect to sit there and say, okay, if you will let us draw longer and get into more details and figure more things out, I know it's hard to wait to break ground, but you're going to end up happier. And at the time, all of the client's focus is on the architect. There's not other stakeholders involved that can kind of share the burden of the client focusing on them.
Right.
But if the architect will take it further or convince the client to take it further, I think that's the best value. That's the best way.
But aren't we starting to see like builders get more involved in the design process early on?
Yeah, we are.
I mean, that should also help, I think, not necessarily a go-between, but it's kind of this team effort, between the builder and architect and the client. And, and hopefully with the experience of the builder being able to talk to the client and say, look, like you said, it's not, it is counterintuitive to, to break ground early on when we don't have plans fully developed. So, let's pause and just try to, exercise some patience and develop these plans further.
Yeah, there are builders getting more involved earlier. In fact, there's a contract structure called the design assist approach that we've been using very successfully on some projects, and it essentially ties the builder and the architect together as a team at the beginning. And so
that's cool.
It allows for a lot of collaboration. The builder can bring the subs in to participate so that, architects aren't having to think, well, what is this going to cost if I draw this in? Or how would you do this? And so we can bring in subs to consult on that. We can also provide pricing data, schedule data, constructability analysis. And, it's interesting where builders have to become very talented at having hard conversations.
Yeah.
Architects, there's some very talented communicators in the architectural community, but they're typically in a project at a time where everybody's optimistic, excited, and hopeful. And then you hand it to the builder and reality sets in, and the builder has to be the one to be able to navigate some hard conversations. And so I think our group is uniquely qualified to have hard conversations and expectation setting conversations. And so we're a benefit to the pre-construction process in that way as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What's one thing that's different about, you've gotten to work with a lot of different types of buildings and companies over your career. What's one thing about clients today that's different than clients you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I don't know that there's much difference other than there just seems to be more of an urgency in people today. It's been something we've experienced since the pandemic. And, I've thought about that quite a bit and talked to my friends and said, what's going on? People just seem to be more stressed. Things seem to be harder. And so having a client's trust at the beginning is huge. There's a book by Covey called The Speed of Trust, and it talks about how much more efficient you can be in collaborative projects and processes if there is trust. And so we work really hard to establish trust early on and maintain it through the project. But it does seem harder these days than it used to. And I don't know the exact reason for that. I hope that it turns around.
Yeah.
But
harder to maintain trust?
No, harder to earn it in the first place.
Okay.
It seems like that it used to be that, we would start a project and trust was kind of the default setting. And it seems these days that the default setting is almost mistrust, and we earn trust. And I'm not against that. It actually, I think once we've earned it, it's more durable than when it was the default start. But there's just a skepticism that I see, and there's also an urgency. Everybody wants things immediately right now.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some things that you've seen that break that trust the quickest?
Ooh. I mean, the quickest is lying.
For sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But also, there's
Especially
kind of
money.
There's a dishonesty that's a direct, the dishonesty of commission. There's also dishonesty of omission. And I think that one is one that we're very focused on that. I call it swallowing the frog. Someone told me that one time that, you get up in the morning and you do the hardest possible thing that you have to do for the day first. You swallow the frog because from that point on, man, everything's downhill. And so, we talk about having the courage to tell the truth and to tell the hard truth first. And that's critical because if a client knows that there's not something simmering under the surface, or that you're not either not telling them or not telling them the full picture or with enough clarity that it makes it understandable to them.
Yeah.
That's a way to create a mistrusting environment. So, that's crucial, I think. Other ways of mistrust is, we've got some guys in the company that it's fascinating to watch them, but they earn the client's trust almost immediately upon meeting them. And the thing that I've noticed about them is there's just deep authenticity in them.
Yeah.
The way that there's no sales in them. They just say what they think.
Yeah.
And it's very refreshing, very reassuring. I think we could all learn from that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to, I think I know who you're talking about, and it seems to just come to them naturally, but sometimes it's hard to, rattle off the first thing that comes to your head, especially in front of extremely wealthy people. And
Yes.
So,
It's intimidating. Architects.
It can be.
Yeah.
There's,
100%.
Another thing that has come out of some of the recent, cultural things is just a bit of nervousness to say the wrong thing or to trip over yourself. And, I don't concern myself too much with that, but, you're right. There's a desire to not say something stupid.
Yeah.
And not to say something offensive. And so, there's been a shift of a lot of architects are now, instead of calling it the master bedroom, are calling it the primary bedroom.
Oh God,
and
that's annoying.
It's a tough shift to make. If the client has called, or if the architect has written primary on the plans, I'll typically try to honor that and say it, but I often don't.
Yeah.
And so the guys that I'm talking about, and the ones that I think you're are coming to your mind, they're going to call it the master bedroom until the day they die. But there's such an authenticity and a lack of of filter that it's amazing how quickly it buys trust from the client. Yeah.
One of the questions that I get when I'm talking with people, and I'll say, type of project I've been working on is so and so, and people really have a hard time understanding the cost of some of these big houses. To say, Michael, how can a house cost that much?
Yeah.
And even the clients that we've worked with, I noticed there's a real barrier to understanding. Well, we've been building houses for so long, and the house that I used to have, we're still putting drywall on the walls. It's the same thing, and how can you explain that to, someone who's listening to us now going, how could something, I mean, outside of something like finishes, right, which is a very understandable category of, if you buy a nicer piece of stone or, you buy a fancy light fixture, I think people really get that. But some of these other pieces I think are really mysterious to people, particularly clients.
Yeah. I think the best way to answer that is the cost to quality curve is an asymptote. And, so if you see on the x-axis or on the horizontal axis, you've got quality. And then on a vertical or y-axis, you've got cost. It starts out at like a 45-degree angle. And, by the time you get to 95% quality, it's going up pretty quickly. But to go from 95 to 98%, I mean, it becomes a straight line. And it's not because it's punitive or because anyone's taking advantage. It's just, an easy illustration, a level 5 drywall, it's supposed to be super smooth. And if you look at the written specifications in Construction Specification Institute, it says, I can't remember the exact thing, but it's something, if you put a 10-foot straight edge on it, you see this much deviation in the surface, right? Well,
I think it's 30
what is it?
I think it's a 32nd. I could be
over
wrong.
10 feet. There's no way.
Could be wrong about that.
But that's probably your definition of a level 5. But if you were to have raking light condition, which is light shining on that surface at less than a 15-degree angle, a level 5 drywall that meets those specifications looks terrible. You can see all the lumps, right? And so, what we do is we keep floating it until you can have a raking light condition and it looks spectacular. And that's one of the reasons why it's so hard for us to have fixed price contracts on things, because if we were to try to write that into a specification that we could hold the sub accountable for, it's very difficult to write that into a specification. It's almost, it has to look perfect when you're shining light on it. And that's why we end up a lot of times having a hard time pricing from the jump a fixed price contract with a sub. But there's also, there is a level of quality that a lot of people want, and it is the best of the best. It's best practices, and we're not for everybody. We're not the builder for everybody, but for the people that want that, we're one of the few that can deliver it. But you asked, okay, finishes, but if you kind of take that philosophy and you extrapolate it all the way into the foundation, into the concrete, and the things that no one ever sees, we put that level of attention and detail and focus and excellence and quality into all of that. Rebar, we're experts on rebar, on spacing, on alignments of it. And so, there's a saying in the company that's treat every piece of work like it's the finished layer. And so if you're treating your framing like it's the finished layer, a lot of people won't do that. But when we do that, that means everything is straight. It's nice. It's clean. We're vacuuming out the wall cavities. And what that does is then the next layer that goes on, it sets that layer up for success.
Particularly with people who have, performed quality in their, world, their industry, their family, whatever perspective they're coming with. They're rarely coming from, with construction knowledge, but they can see and understand, I know what quality looks like in my field or in my world, and so I can see how that can translate, and I can appreciate that in y'all's. And I hear that's what you're saying. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that's a good statement. Like, treat every layer. I've never heard that before. Treating every layer like it's the finished layer. I'm gonna use that. That's great.
It's good. Yeah,
that's good.
Keith, one of our
I
mean, he's our best guy. He's brilliant. And he had a picture he sent out. It was subgrade waterproofing, and all of the protection board was taped, and all of the tape, the lettering was facing the same way. And I remember, I kind of looked at that and I was like, that's a little OCD. But what you realize is that by him instructing the sub to do that, he was focusing the sub's attention on the task and on quality. And it wasn't even as much about making the lettering face the right way. It was that he knew that if he told the sub that that's the level of excellence that he expected to see, then the thing that the tape's actually doing would be done very well, right? And I thought that was
cool.
brilliant.
That's cool.
It is really.
I really like that.
That's nice. What's an asymptote?
It's just a curve.
Is it?
I don't know. That's
You use the word.
Yeah, it's a type of
I use words that I don't know what they mean all the time.
mathematical curve.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I learned something new, man. That's great.
It's elliptical.
You get what does
It's always
ChatGPT say? What's an asymptote?
An asymptote is it's always I think it's the radius is always curving. No,
the slope, right?
the slope.
Slope is always changing.
Slope is always changing.
Dang, Michael, let's put it to the test. Let's see if you're
he's
right.
right. I'm going to be very impressed.
Dang.
It's got math symbols.
Man.
Uh-oh.
It's a line that a graph approaches but never actually touches or crosses, even as it extends infinitely.
Oh, that sounds like I was wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know it's like curvy.
Well, look, is it listening to you? Because it says in a metaphor, for example, saying someone is approaching perfection like an asymptote. And that's literally like the exact example that you gave.
I do think it listens to me.
And ChatGPT said the same thing.
I turned off the voice thing.
I think he was using it in the correct correct way, just maybe not being able to describe the whole definition.
For sure. I just, there's a lot of big words out there that I don't understand. So I was just asking. But hey, now, if you didn't know what an asymptote was.
Well, edit this part out because I don't want
know
people to know that I didn't know.
No, nothing is getting edited out.
There's one of the interesting things, I don't know why this came to my mind as we were talking, but the ability to predict schedule and budget, during COVID, both of those went out the window.
Yeah.
We didn't, lead times, no one knew. Budgets, the labor shortage is so acute. Nobody knew what anything was going to cost. And there's a reaction in the market among our peers and colleagues, other companies that kind of do what we do, that to try to pin that down. And it's been interesting to watch because what everyone's trying to do is figure out how to make things better for the client, right? That's ultimately our motivation.
Yeah.
And a lot of the companies have moved towards a much more rigid, process-driven approach. And so there's some companies that have come in from out of town that have scaled what we do. What we do is notoriously difficult to scale. Yeah. It's a very, it's very bespoke stuff and it's hard to scale, but there's some that have done it successfully and they've moved more towards a rigidly defined model, right? So they hate the tension of the unknown. And some of the designers and architects that we know, say that, hey, they're able to predict price and schedule for the client and hold it accountable, which the client loves. But what it's done is it's choked out the creative process or the collaboration along the way.
Interesting.
And so, we felt the tension. We've all talked about getting more process driven and, firmer in what we require. But there's also the enjoyment of this is allowing that creative collaboration. I mean, you're an architect, so that's a critical part of it. And so
that's where the sauce is made right there.
Yeah. But we also feel the pressure to provide more certainty. And so, one of the things that we're doing, you guys know this and have been part of it, but we're really focusing on how do we live in that tension? Because the desire right now is to get out of tension, right? And so everybody's fleeing this model of let's leave things ill-defined and just kind of figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
But if people are willing to see it as a tension to manage instead of a problem to solve, I think they're going to be very successful in the market. And so, if there's any home builders out there listening and are trying to figure out which route to go, I think that the right approach is to be willing to live in that tension, to be willing to provide the space for the creative process to happen and the collaboration to happen, but be able to build professional and sophisticated enough processes that you can manage all of the information flow, the uncertainty, and communicate really well. And it puts a much greater burden on the builder. But I think the end product is better.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree. I think there's, and also part of that I think is celebration in the process of being able to say, hey, like communicating, hey, this is valuable. What's happening is, it wasn't actually bad that we started the project without all the answers, because even if the perfect project isn't you figure out everything at the beginning and then you execute on it, because you're naturally learning things along the way, And so being able to adapt and change to those things, especially for a project that's, multi-year, for example, or has complex, logistical challenges, that's just the cost and ability to time cost and, monetary cost to figure all those out at the beginning. If you're willing to enter the process and be okay in that detention that you're describing, and the client is seeing that and going, hey, like, I see that this is adding value that, I mean, yes, it's harder for everyone, but I think that's a huge win as well.
And I mean, I've done several jobs where it seems like my most favorite parts, like design wise, of the build came through some kind of issue came up, and we had to problem solve and come up with this creative solution to solve the problem. And that really became like this interesting way to achieve like some other kind of design, and it, whereas like if the problem hadn't existed, we would have just carried out the original design and everything would have been fine. But it's like the design was almost improved upon because of some oversight or some issue that came up. And so we were able to pivot and change, and it actually made the end product better.
Yeah.
So I think,
That's awesome.
that kind of goes along to what y'all are saying about having that flexibility and not being so rigid, but also having, the processes in place to be able to, manage that. But
yeah, there, this is a little bit contrary to what we're all agreeing to right now, but in 2013, it was a Bensonwood house, right? So, architects, it was Amont Plum out of Boston. They designed this house. It was on Lake Austin, and the entire thing was modeled, including all the HVAC runs. It was a timber frame structure with SIPS panels, but even the mid floor and the framing of the mid floor was pre-manufactured. The SIPS panels came with, it was a Marvin window and door package, came with those installed.
Wow.
So we went from slab to dried in, 100% dried in, and into MEP roughs in 7 days.
Wow.
And they had also made every selection beforehand. We had the cabinetry shop drawing 11 months. We it was like 6,500 square foot house.
Wow.
Really nice finishes. Now, the geometry of the house was not that interesting.
Yeah.
Because
very simple.
Yeah. Although these days there's, even, houses with SIPs are able to be more geometrically interesting, but that was a pretty amazing project.
Yeah.
It was it was a lot of fun. And so, there are, for people that want speed and quality, that's a really great way to go about it.
That's a good segue, because that was one of my questions that I had was, in an effort to cut down the schedule, a lot of times that means you're cutting quality.
Yeah.
So how do you, lessen the build time without sacrificing quality?
Yeah, it's interesting. It gets back to, are you interested in total project time, or are you interested in the construction time? And what a lot of people think is, again, if we spend a long time in pre-construction, the overall project takes longer. If I was going to build my dream home, I would spend more time in pre-construction and try to compress the actual construction time, because the most expensive part is the construction time. You've got a big machine ramped up. And so, it's hard for people that aren't in the industry to pick things without being able to visualize. And so, picking finished stuff, a lot of times clients struggle to do that in pre-construction, but that's where I encourage people to find a designer that you really love their aesthetic and let them do it or guide you. Because if you can get everything picked and designed in pre-construction, when we break ground, we can fly.
Yeah.
The majority of time that is delayed during construction is waiting on answers.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So if we can eliminate that, you can really compress. People think if they give you an answer for something, or they pick something a week before it's supposed to happen, that you're good to go. But I typically will say the amount of time that it takes to draw or to pick something, we need that much time to get it integrated into our mental model, into the planning, to get it priced.
Yeah.
And so, we need decisions way earlier in a process than what people think.
Yeah. So if you were to take a step back and look at the total, not just the build time, but the entire project schedule, are there actually any ways to shave down the time? Because like you said, like, okay, you might spend all this time in pre-construction and less time in the build phase, but total, is there any difference?
That's a good question. I think the design assist is interesting because here's my thought on this. If an architect is designing a set of plans and they don't know who the builder is, then they have to draw a lot more detail than maybe necessary, because if we end up with the plans, we have a shared vernacular. They say that, we want this type of detail, and either we'll present it in a shop drawing for them to review and approve, or we know that what that detail is and how to do it. But if they're sending it out to the Wild West of builders, and I guess I don't want to pick on it. I was going to say a tract builder's name, but I don't want to pick on anybody. If they're worried that they might get it, then they're going to have to draw a lot of extra detail into it to know that it gets built the right way. And so the thing about design assist is it allows the architect to not have to draw to such detail, because we can we create a shared plan, and so that I do think can compress the pre-construction timeline. It also lets us get subs in and start bidding things early, getting subs on board, getting them signed up, and so I think that's the best way currently to compress pre-construction timeline. And then again, the construction timeline is compressed because of a high quality pre-construction.
Yeah. And
so that's the best approach that I see right now to shortening the overall timeline. The future will have things like offsite manufacturing of large assemblies, structural SIPs. But until that's really hitting, or until they figure out how to 3D print houses with multiple materials, the best way to do it is spend time planning and with the entire team on board, so that they can get to the start fast, and then during construction they can fly.
Yeah.
We had a really fast track project out in West Texas, and it was awesome to watch. It was really fun to see the team at the beginning was all on the same page of speed is critical here. And so the architect would answer within an hour of getting an RFI.
Yeah.
And man, you talk about nitrous in the tank. When we can get answers like that, that really empowers us.
That's awesome.
I mean, I don't know how much can actually be said about that project, but that was kind of a special controlled environment, though. There was no distractions. You had your own little village out there that you could, that's the only thing to do was to build.
Yeah.
Right.
But so that obviously we can't reproduce. But, it
was an interesting experiment.
And I go back to the amount of time that we spend waiting on answers from outside parties. If you could just filter that out of a project, I bet you could cut 20% easy.
Yeah. Do you see AI playing a big role in like pre-construction and design, and trying to maybe bridge some of the gap between client and builder and architect, and trying to consolidate a lot of this information and like just pump it out quicker? Or
yes.
What
I don't know how exactly, but I can tell you AI is going to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
We've tooled around with it doing takeoffs.
For sure.
We've been playing around with it in just different ways of handling pre-construction, making it more efficient. I use it to write emails sometimes. So, who knows what all it's going to do. I hope that it doesn't replace architects. I don't think that it's going to be that creative.
Yeah. No, it's not.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
There's no way. Michael's just so darn creative. Like, you can't replace Michael. There's no computer out there that's got this brain and this experience, and it's just not going to happen.
I don't know. Like, do architects just become really good prompt writers of ChatGPT and not actually drawing?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely a certain amount of like drawing and stuff like that, and that's where it gets I think, scary for designers to hear. Oh my gosh, people can generate a plan.
It's coming for your
just
job.
by typing. Yeah, exactly. It's coming. But the tricky thing is, and this kind of goes back to the trades as well. Of like, as things get more manufactured, how do you train people in high craft positions?
Mm-hmm.
And I think architecture is in danger of that. How architects learned for a long time was doing, edits for architects, right? So you would start at a low level draftsman, and you would just be working for someone for a long time, and you'd be building up your knowledge base. And then when it's time to step up into a, kind of high level architect role. Well, if some sort of machine learning system is doing all of the editing process, how are you training people to do that?
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens, but that would be the
Well, it's the same thing with law. I mean, entry-level lawyers are going to get replaced because they were doing research and writing briefs. But then how do you create grown-up lawyers?
Right.
If
Right.
You kill all
Where's
of
the
the
replacement?
baby lawyers.
Yeah. I think it's not
I will say, Matt Ficus one time told me that CAD had harmed productivity. And I said, that seems counterintuitive to me. And he said, well, when you were drawing with paper and pen, you kind of focused on the big, but he was walking through his office one time and there was a team that was behind schedule on designing the project, and he saw one of them had zoomed in and was drawing the head of a screw. And he was like, if you're doing it by hand, you're never going to do that.
You're not,
And so they get distracted by these minutia that aren't that important. And so, the solution is you find a project manager that can run the team and keep them focused. But it'll be interesting to figure out how ChatGPT has unintended consequences like that.
Yeah, that's a great.
I also think that, I love Michael Ember's designs, and I don't want to misspeak on this, but my understanding is that every Friday morning his office gets together and they all do watercolor. Have you heard of
arts
this?
and crafts?
Yeah. I actually kind of helped them
Start that?
Well, I don't know about start, but like make it like a routine thing. But they call it Sketch Club.
Yeah.
And
you're taking
oftentimes, I don't. I'm definitely not taking credit. But
I hear him saying that it should be called Stolle instead of Michael Ember.
yeah, that's definitely not true. I mean, it can be long and drawn out, or it can be quick. But they would throw down an image, everyone would draw the same image, and it was just a quick little exercise, but that was super powerful in a bunch of different ways.
I have to believe, that having those skills and celebrating them in that office helps create the amazing designs they create.
100%.
It also, when they present to clients and it's a hand-drawn sketch or a watercolor.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a client, I would say, well, here's my money. Let's go build
that.
that.
100%. That's there's something about like the connection to it. It's not like, hey, I just printed this out, and like photoshopped something. There's like real effort and in the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Do they, when it comes to their like floor plans and designs, do they do both hand drawn and CAD? Can they kind of merge the two?
Yeah. They use a bunch of different tools, kind of in various hybrid, configurations. Kind of depends on the project and, larger versus smaller, different styles, commercial, residential. So kind of different fits for what the project requires. On some, it's, all hand done.
Yeah.
But others, particularly in floor plan, that's a good example where in a presentation style, they merge, being able to lay things out in, like 1/4 inch scale.
Yeah.
In CAD, that's really helpful. And then like, putting color to it by hand.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
They do a great
It
job.
really is. Man, Michael Ember would be great to get on here. I'd like to get him.
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He teaches at Yale. I went to a talk he did at the McNay
Oh, yeah.
Art Museum
McNay.
Yeah.
in San Antonio.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I was
Very talented.
Yeah, and he's a great presenter. If he did that talk that he gave at the McNay,
Yeah.
it'd be your highest rated episode ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh, you heard it here
I've
first.
been toying around with the idea of doing video. Well, Michael, you touched on this idea of like training training some of the trades. But Ben, what's I wanted to talk about this like shop class initiative.
Oh yeah.
Talk about that. What is that whole?
Well, this is one of the things I'm most passionate about. So I'm going to go off
let's
on
talk
this.
about it.
Let's go.
So I read a book called Shop Class is Soulcraft. I dropped out of law school and realized that I was going to hate sitting at a desk, and kind of got reintroduced to construction. Growing up, I was a good student, even though I didn't love school. And so I was destined for college, and, this construction was something I loved to do on the side.
Yeah.
Go to the family ranch, build stuff. But I never thought of it as a career. It always seemed like that's what you do if you don't go to college. But after college, I dropped out of law school and fell in love with it all over again. Read this book called Shop Class is Soulcraft, and it's a pretty dense treatise. I studied philosophy in college, so I loved it. But the gist of it is that there's moral value, or there's character formation and manual competence. And I won't go in all the details of that. If anybody's interested, I highly encourage you to grab the book. But it's this idea that people, when they can manifest themselves tangibly in the world, they experience a lot of character formation. It's an antidote to narcissism. There's nothing that'll prove that the world is not an extension of your will faster than just standing there and willing a motor to run. You have to get outside yourself and give it what it needs.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to, a friend of mine and some investors have been trying to start a trade school for a long time in Austin. We wanted to be a residential model where you would live on campus, had the college experience. There's a school called Williamson College of the Trades in Pennsylvania that I love, and I've talked to them, and they have a football team. It beat George Mason University, or whatever that is, George Mason University. And so it's the quintessential college experience, but what they're learning is trades.
Yeah.
And you can outsource nowadays almost anything. ChatGPT is going to replace attorneys, but you cannot outsource plumbers. You can't outsource electricians.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a long time before that just happens on site. The Tesla robot at some point may be able to do it, but I don't know, man. That's more than anything. Now you can fly to India and have a knee replacement surgery. So even doctors are becoming easier to outsource than these trades. We have a massive trade shortage, as everybody knows. The plumbers are the worst, because I think what happens is, kids over the last few years who are thinking, well, I'll go into a trade. They don't want to have to mess with sewage. They think that's gross. So they're becoming electricians or HVAC. But a new construction plumber never has to mess with that. Right?
That's true.
So we started trying to start this trade school, but what we ran into is to become a master plumber in Texas and be able to pull your license, you have to work under a master plumber for 4 years as an apprentice, and that's a hard 4 years.
Yeah.
You're earning your stripes.
Yeah.
And you test, you get your journeyman's license. And if this is not 100% accurate, please forgive me. This is the gist of it. I don't want plumbers calling in yelling at you, but you work for another 4 years and then you can take your master's exam. Well, there's other states where if you go to a trade school program, you count it towards that work experience requirement. In Texas, you can't, or you only can count half of it. And so there's this disincentive to go to school. And so this legislative session actually that ends on the 2nd, there's actually been some law changes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
I would love to
exciting.
take credit for it. I've been raising a stink, but there's some really great people that have kind of gotten that done. So I think a trade school like that would be amazing. If anybody's out there and want to participate in this, please reach out and get in touch with me.
So where is this at? Is this just kind of an idea that's still in development, or so you're looking really for investors? Like what's the,
we love investors. We've got some investors.
What's the next step though?
I think the next step is it was really getting this law changed, and then starting to firm up the plan, and try to find a place for it. We've done a lot of the legwork of what it would take to get accredited. We've planned the programs. Michael did a drawing for us. Remember that?
Yeah.
He's got he drew the campus.
Yeah.
He drew it like in the middle of Austin. And so I love the view of it, but I don't think we can afford that land.
Yeah.
But then it's a side project. I'm trying to start a shop class at my daughter's school.
Yeah.
I think I made a mistake. The first time I presented it is I was telling everybody don't go to college. I think it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I will still say that, but I think it wasn't the best received message at the school. So I kind of let everything chill for a little bit, and now I'm taking another run at it, and I think I'm getting some traction. But I think, man, there's so much greatness in manual competence.
Yeah.
There's this quote in that shop class's Soulcraft. I'm gonna pull it up real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to read it to you.
No, I think that's great because, I mean, you're right. I think that's kind of what's missing in society today is like everybody's like their lives are just online. Like they're in this just out in the ether.
Yeah.
And it's like they're kind of missing, like they're just watching the world go by. Like, you know, there's so much out there and so many skills to learn and, you know, and it kind of scares me. Like there's so many people who, you know, yeah, they don't know how their car works. They're driving around. If they get a flat tire, like they're stuck. They're screwed.
Yeah.
They don't even know how to change a tire.
Yeah.
Or, you know, where does the oil go? You know, what oil do you need? Like even basic stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's just lost. Like you're speaking another language. But so what's your quote?
All right. The satisfaction of manifesting oneself concretely in the world through manual competence has been known to make a man quiet and easy. They seem to relieve him of the felt need to offer chattering interpretations of himself to vindicate his worth. He can simply point. The building stands, the car now runs, the lights are on. Boasting is what a boy does because he has no real effect in the world. But the tradesman must reckon with the infallible judgment of reality, where one's failures or shortcomings cannot be interpreted away. His well-founded pride is far from the gratuitous self-esteem, in quotes, that educators would impart to students as though by magic.
Dang.
Yeah,
that is a powerful
awesome.
quote.
Yeah, it's like the man in the arena.
That's
those are the
crazy.
two things I have hanging on my wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Both. That's a great quote.
Yeah, you know,
Man,
there's
that's
just.
amazing.
I mean, we get to see it. It's so fun to watch
Yeah.
these guys, what they can do on the site.
Yeah.
You know, like we
yeah,
had
for sure.
Michael and I did a Michael Limber project, and it had this really complex groin vault ceiling that was all going to be perfect plaster. I mean, it had to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We were looking at getting it machined, and this guy named Eddie was just kind of watching. He said, "Man, I can figure that out." And then I love geometry, and he was doing I mean, I bet he didn't graduate from 8th grade, and he pulled the geometry and just nailed it. It's actually it's in Architectural Digest, the photo of that ceiling.
Yeah.
And watching him do that and realizing I have a master's degree in construction science, and I couldn't have figured that out to save my life.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like watching Jorge, the way that guy can solve problems, and you know, then just watching the plaster guys. I mean, I could do plaster. It's funny. This is different, but I'm rebuilding an old truck, a 68 truck, and I couldn't get the sheet metal on the hood to be right. So Jorge sent his daughter's father-in-law over, was a body shop guy, and he was showing me what to do, and I'm like, that's exactly what I'm doing. But his hands did it in a way that it worked, and my hands just couldn't.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like that's so often with these guys on site.
I agree 100%. I mean, that's
cool.
One of the most satisfying things about what we do is just sometimes being able to just step back and watch these craftsmen just do their thing.
Yeah.
And just watch like the art that unfolds in front of you and you know, see something go from this theoretical 2-dimensional drawing to this 3D structure. And it's extremely rewarding to go through all of the whole process from start to finish, all the blood, sweat, and tears, and you know, uncomfortable conversations, and you get to stand there at the very end and see the fruits of your labor, or you know, the fruits of their labor, I guess. Like we're kind of managing the process, but they're the ones actually, you know, using the tools and swinging hammers, but. It's extremely rewarding to be able to watch it all just unfold in front of you.
Yeah.
That's probably the most rewarding thing.
Yeah.
I feel immensely appreciative to our clients.
Yeah.
You know, like they really are the modern patrons of the arts. They're
Yeah,
the ones that they're willing to embark. You know, I've said this to some of our clients before, but you know, if we're building them let's say we're building a $20 million house and it's going to take 3 years, it's like we're starting a $6 million business with them, and they're making us the CEO of the business. And a lot of our clients, because of their net worth, they're really good CEOs. I mean, they own businesses. And they are guiding us as if we were one of their subsidiaries. And I love it. I mean, I learned so much from them, and they're patrons of the arts. They're letting us. I love what I do.
It's so cool.
And I wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have clients that are like, hey, I want to really make something happen, which is honestly, it's one of the reasons why we build the way we do. We see these things as 100-year homes, and we want to build something that the internals of it are what people are going to want to remodel, instead of tear down and start over.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's where the architects really come in too. I heard somebody say that the greenest way you can build is to build something beautiful, because it's not going to get torn down.
Oh wow, that's a great
And
quote.
so when the architects that we build for, they're designing stuff that nobody's going to tear it down.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy too.
Yeah. Well, final thought is, are you seeing anything in the industry that's coming up, in home building that you're looking forward to, that excites you? What does the future look like?
Yeah. So is it an industry or our company?
As an industry.
As an industry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Here's what I will say. I think the next 10 years in construction are going to be an inflection point. In the world in general, it feels like all of the sci-fi movies that we watched as kids are coming true all at once, like Terminator, Matrix, Jurassic Park. And so the amount of churn that we're experiencing in the world is massive, and that can be scary to some people. I see it as really exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know, what all is going to come out of it, but there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of it. There'll be some bad. We'll sort through that. We always do. But I see our industry in the same way. There's 3D printing. There's things like Dario. There's modular stuff. There's, a lot of more sophisticated offsite manufacturing. We're seeing millwork shops ramp up. There is going to be a massive, I think, tectonic shift in the industry. And there's going to be people that are caught standing flat-footed, builders that are, can or won't adapt. But there's so much opportunity because of this. AI is going to be a big part of it. We don't know how.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that I can tell you exactly what specific thing I'm most excited about. But what I'm most excited about is how much innovation and churn there's going to be, because that excites me.
Yeah.
I love being in an industry that is going to experience that. And I love the team that we've got that is going to be figuring that out. It makes me so excited.
Yeah. Man, awesome. I'm pumped just listening to you talk about it, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's one of Ben's superpowers, is being able to, I don't think I've ever heard you back down from a challenge. And seeing
true.
something and say, hey, we can do it, and look at that and say, that looks like a big problem. Let's go figure it out.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I want to throw it back on y'all. What are y'all excited about
in
the industry?
Wasn't expecting that turnaround.
Yeah.
Michael, you can go first.
The hunted becomes the hunter.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I'm really excited about is, like, there's, for a long time, computers have been, something that on the design owner, like project management side, has been part of the processes, even things like emails. But I've really seen the trades. I mean, even with things like cell phones, the ability to share information, I think that's really going to pick up in the next, we'll call it 5 years, especially as like kind of a younger generation moves it. That's just much more. They're just those tools. They're a lot better with, and I'm really excited about that because communication is such a big challenge point at my job in particular, whether that's language barriers, whether that's speed of communication, whether that's just large projects with large project site and getting, the drawing from, this crew over here to that crew over there. And so I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's see. I'll try not to butcher this because I have a huge disconnect between my brain and my mouth. So it sounds really good in my head, but doesn't always come out great. But I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, I'm going to try to make a prediction, but what I think, and this could be the next 10 years, it could be 20 years, but, the culture seems to operate like a pendulum. It'll swing one way and then, it might take 20 or 30 years for it to swing back the other way. And I think we're going to see, like right now, we're in this huge technological push, with AI, like what you were just alluding to. But I think eventually, we're going to return back to like handcrafted, crafting things. I think we're going to see a change in architecture. Go back to more crafted, I don't want to say imperfect, but just something that's less
maybe sculptural,
sculptural and clean lined and slick and smooth. I think we're going to see a return to this like human, perfectly imperfect structure and smaller. Maybe I think we're going to see houses that are going to be architecturally significant, but not like these huge footprints. And I think we're going to start to see a swing go back the other way. We're getting the technology push right now, but I think eventually, the generation, maybe our generation or the one coming up, I think we're gonna, because you kind of see it with like music and art and even some TV shows where and even style and clothing, there's certain things that are like older things that are starting to come back. And I think we're going to see that too in architecture and construction. I think we're going to see a return to like this human crafted, handcrafted construction. So
I love that.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that gets me excited.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing that even a little bit now. Like we're seeing a lot of specifications for on cabinets. They want the final coat to be hand brushed so that you see. I mean, forever it was they wanted like a factory type finish on it. They wanted to be perfect. That's exciting to me. Here's what I'll say though. We need some kids to get under these masters and start learning those skills, or they're gonna die.
Amen to that.
Is there any information out there or like a link that you have to this? I mean, it's just all in your head, your shop class initiative, or what information is out there that we could share?
I mean, if people are interested in just understanding more about that idea, there's three schools that I really like. There's one, I think it's in Charleston. It's the College of Craftsmanship or something.
I think College of the Arts, maybe.
They're they have a stonemason program.
Yeah.
Williamson College of the Trades, and there's one in Michigan called Harmel Academy. Specifically for here, I would just say email and text you all the time, and then you put them in touch with me.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Something I'm really interested about that is getting like the eyes and ears of like these younger kids who are, either, parents have watched their parents, in different trades, or kids are just interested in it and looking for other. I think that's a challenge. I mean, I hate TikTok and there's no way I'm walking into that world, but finding out how to get a hold of those kids and saying, hey, this is such a word that you are going to love this and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a huge point of that. They're probably not our audience if I had to guess, but hopefully they will be one day.
Hopefully. Well, cool, man. I mean, I don't think of a better place to end than that, but Ben, I really appreciate your time and everything that you've had to say, and man, I feel pumped and inspired, so I hope everybody listening also gets that same feeling. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.